Oil giant TotalEnergies says it's pulling the plug on Brulpadda and Luiperd gas projects off South Africa's south coast on the grounds that they're not commercially viable. They also cite regulatory issues as stumbling blocks. Joining us for more on this is EUNOMIX CEO Claude de Baissac. Good afternoon, Claude, and thank you very much for joining us. I must say, Claude, this story has piqued the interest of many, especially because just a week ago, the Mineral Resources Minister was speaking in Parliament on how critical gas and oil exploration are for South Africa's economic future. Then now we hear of the news of Total's withdrawal. Your thoughts on this?
Okay, well, firstly, it was expected. It had been somewhat announced in the circles that it was going to happen. And it is obviously a huge disappointment because this is really the first gas project in South Africa, a new project in over 40 years. And it had a number of benefits. The first one is that it was going to allow South Africa to keep existing infrastructure on the Eastern Cape coast to remain active around Mossel Bay as previous gas exploration had run out. And the second one is that it was coming at a time, as we all know, that electricity crisis has been a major problem, albeit slightly abated for now, but we don't know what's going to happen in the future with this come. And so it was a critical test. It really was a first toe in the water in what is, have to understand your listeners that South Africa is now part of a big ensemble in Southern Africa, where there is a veritable oil and gas revolution taking place. And this one was our first shot. And unfortunately, it's passing us by.
It's honestly quite unfortunate because it was announced to much fanfare. We all remember when we heard of this gas exploration. But now, when listening to Total, they say neither of these two projects could be turned into commercial development, as it appeared to be too challenging economically to develop and monetize in our market. Yeah. Why exactly? Or as somebody who has operated in this space for a very long time, explain to us the difficulties they would have had to contend with. Why was it not economically viable?
All right, so there are many questions. You can say a lot behind words like technically viable or commercially viable. And Total is going to be very tight-lipped about this because importantly, they still have one exploration prospect, which is very important in South Africa, which is in the Orange River Basin, connecting to Namibia. And that is potentially, experts say that this could be, combined Namibia and South Africa, the largest offshore oil discovery in a long time. Besides what has been discovered in Suriname, and there have been a number of problems with Venezuela, Suriname on this one. But so Total is going to be very, very careful to term this in a way that does not compromise its relationship with key stakeholders and government.
But is it not a disservice to us then, or even potential investors, because they would like to know what the challenges are to address them as early as they can if they decide to enter that specific space? Wouldn't we all want to know?
Look, people who want to know will know, right? And people it's a very particular industry, oil and gas industry, and it's very tight-lipped and it's a very close circle. And trust me, what's going on is known by those who need to know. Now, those who are, kind of in the periphery of the industry, like me, will have to talk to people and then kind of put it together. Plus, we've been following this for a long story. So what's behind that commercial unfeasibility notion is, so firstly, there is really some serious technical issues. It's far offshore, it's very deep, it's gas concentrate. And the problem is that Total could not find an off-taker, right? And it's a big enough operation that it requires to have an off-taker, that they can't simply develop it and then see who's going to buy it. But it's too small to transform this gas into liquid natural gas, which can be put on ship and then sold overseas. So it had to be bought by a domestic buyer. Now, the option was PetroSA would buy it. But PetroSA clearly messed up on this one. And And then government needed to fast-walk this, and government slow-walked it. And I think we need to be very honest. It's not so much that the regulatory environment isn't correct, but it is, I mean, I was told this afternoon, making the calls around, I was told by someone in the know that government, after 4 years of this announcement by Total that they had made a discovery, and therefore that they had then applied for a production license, which had been granted. So we are no longer talking about exploration here. This was done. We knew what was there. Mm-hmm. It was just a matter of now making it a business. And I learned, and I was somewhat aware of it, that government still did not have, and still does not have, an oil and gas technical expert advisor to work with them. Mm-hmm. So, and this is highly technical stuff, right? And the same about Petro SA. Now, Petro SA issued an RFP end of this year for a gas operation, which in its technical term excluded the type of gas operation that Total was producing. So the view was that, well, these guys aren't serious, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have the technical savoir-faire. They don't hire the technical experts. They are lackadaisical about taking this seriously.
Quite unfortunate for Petro SA, because they were the ones that were going to benefit with their feeder stock, because they would have gotten it from there.
Correct, because now they find themselves in a situation where, I mean, you could argue, I mean, you can turn this way any way you want, but, you know, we know how it goes in South Africa. It's not quite that bad. It's not quite that bad. I mean, in the meantime, you don't have gas going from that field to Petro SA, right? Refinery. And so, look, there's still the local partner who had 10% of that, and now suddenly they find themselves owning 100% of something that is going to require, I mean, Total was going to put $4 billion into this project, so just 70 billion rands, and the economic benefits were estimated at 6,000 jobs, plus potentially creating 45,000 jobs in the economy. It's not as if the country can afford to, I'm going to not become French here and be rude on TV. You know, it's not as if the country can slow walk or, you know, drop the ball. This is a fumble. It's a political fumble. Yeah, I wrote a piece earlier this week and last on mining, and I was interviewed on one of your colleagues' network, and I said, look, I think it's time for Brulpadda and Luiperd to retire, right? I mean, he hasn't really achieved anything grandiose since he's been Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. I mean, the only thing we will remember him is for this gas power, you know, the car power ship disaster.
But he's been an advocate for gas exploration as well as oil, because he does believe it's the future. Hopefully we can bring him on the show to just talk to some of the issues that you bring up, because there's also a broader conversation that many say there needs to be some sort of streamlining of all the regulatory policies here, because to a certain extent they hinder growth in this specific area. So we must certainly reach out to him and just find out, as you say, they fumbled on this one. We'll find out from them if indeed it was a fumble or they really had their hands tied on this one.
They'll never tell you it's a fumble, you know. I mean, they never fumble. I mean, you know, they just saved the country now through the GNU.
Claude, unfortunately, we have run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's EUNOMIX CEO Claude de Baissac speaking to us.